Current Day Mammoth. Written, performed, and recorded by RRR Writerson. Chapter 2. Rowdy with a Chance of Pain. If this were a movie, which, hot father willing, it one day will be, we would now cut to modern day America. Maybe it's the 80s. A major city, perhaps New York or LA. Really, it's not that important. What's more important is the soundtrack, the unforgettable bass line to Jaggy Swagson's #1 hit song, Saggy Daggy in My Bag, is playing as the camera swoops across the city.
Saggy Daggy in my bag. Saggy Daggy. In my bag. Saggy Daggy.
Yes, this is it, the big city. We cut to a bar, and the music gets a bit quieter. But we can see people bobbing their heads in time to the beat, to illustrate that it is diegetic. Here we are, LA, I've decided LA now, in the 80s. It's a happening place. People with long feathery hair and bandanas are knocking back beers and playing pool underneath a hanging lamp. Maybe there'll be a fight. It's just that kind of place. Rowdy with a chance of pain. At the bar, we meet our protagonists. Two young scientists with some crazy ideas and a thirst to prove themselves in the greatest country in the world. America. How are we going to get $50,000? Asked Mike Gentleman, gesticulating to the model-esque barmaid for another cold one. He was a tall, white, smooth-talking, scientific genius from England. The son of Christian and Angelica Gentleman, international singing sensations of the 1960s, he had been cut off from his sizable inheritance, as his parents disagreed with his choice of lifestyle. Top in class at Oxford for Mammoth studies, highly lauded academic, and author of the best-selling scientific book of the decade, Cryo Me a River, Why Mammoth Studies Are More Important Than Singing. "The bank of Mum and Dad is dry," replied Sven Carpenter, Mike's blonde, blue-eyed, surfer-looking colleague, wearing a Coca-Cola vest, unironically, also a scientific genius. He also had an eye patch from what he often claimed was a fight with a Navy SEAL while travelling in Germany, although the side on which he wore it seemed to flip as frequently as he awoke with a hangover. Often. "We have this one opportunity. The sample is a one-of-a-kind, perfectly preserved," said Mike Gentleman, sipping his cold one. "A full mammoth and a prehistoric teenager trapped in the ice. And through my contacts in France, our lab can be the ones to investigate it. If only we could get our hands on the 50 grand for the shipping." "Dude, hold the exposition. I know the entire situation as we have worked together for 5 years. You're the cool-headed English one who can talk his way out of anything, and I'm the slightly less put-together one who is more willing to take risks. You don't need to spell this shit out." "If only we could find a way to sort this out quickly and get our story moving," said Mike, downing his beer like the house takes chips. From the dingy background, a stranger approached the main characters. "I may be of assistance," crooned the stranger, coming into focus underneath the hanging lamp. She was your generic femme fatale, thin but busty, brunette, sharply dressed, highly one-dimensional. "Yes, you could, honey," replied Sven in a way which, by today's standards, was incredibly sexist and condescending parlance. The anonymous approacher ignored the comment. This kind of microaggression was a part of her daily life, and she had learned to ignore it, usually without much effort. Sometimes, though. Sometimes she would go home after work, and after taking her shoes off and pouring a glass of expensive Chardonnay, she would feel a dagger of regret for all the times she didn't say what she should have said. When she was younger, she was so outspoken, so wild. Had she really made peace with the rules of the game, or was she lying to herself over and over and, at great cost to her own mental well-being, irresponsibly repressing the anger and resentment? Couldn't she be doing more? How could she be so selfish? I represent a group of very wealthy clients who would be willing to front the costs of your research, replied the mysterious woman. Sven raised an eyebrow. And who exactly are these clients? Asked Mike, showing real intuition. Mike is the English character with the smarts. Just a reminder, as this is early on in the story and learning character names can take some people longer than others. That's not important. The question is, can you afford to refuse me? Asked the woman. Hell no, blurted Sven, who, if you recall, is the American guy who is more prone to making poor decisions. Why would these clients be interested in funding our paleontological research? Requested Mike, the English one. You'll thank me later for the reminders. They would only require the tusks of the mammoth. As you know, the ivory trade is very much illegal, and my clients are law-abiding people. They are interested only in mammoth tusks, and are willing to pay handsomely. We'll take 50,000, said Sven. Done, replied the woman. Hang on a second there, Buster, interjected Mike, the English character. How will we find you? Asked Sven. I will contact you, said the woman. And with that she disappeared into the crowd, just another attractive fish in the ocean of desperation. Is that all she was? Sometimes she looked back on her youth to the days where things felt more significant. Mike looked daggers at Sven. Don't you think you could have maybe bargained a bit? You know how much people pay for ivory, no less ancient mammoth ivory? Pfft. We could have funded our own damn institute. Look, we wanted a quick resolution of this part and we got one. Why you gotta complain all the time? Replied Sven, feeling like he'd done some pretty sweet negotiating. Quick to take risks, and quick to act without thinking. Those are your traits, Sven, said Mike, finishing off his brewski. You're just an asshole, Mike. I don't care how fancy you sound, replied Sven, downing another frosty cold one. The two of them shared a few more beers before Mike stepped away from the bar into a solitary spotlight. No one seemed to pay him any mind as he sang a wistful song. When I studied Mammoth at Oxford University, they told me there would come a day when greed would take my soul away. What have I done? Find out what happens next time in Chapter 3 of Current Day Mammoth. To find out what happens next time in Chapter 3, you should subscribe, because then you'll know what happens in the next chapter, Chapter 3 of Current Day Mammoth. Thanks.